World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history, ended in 1945 with the defeat of Nazi Germany. But what if history had taken a different turn? What if Hitler had won the war? What would the world look like today? For Germany to have won, some of its biggest mistakes would have to be avoided. Instead of invading the Soviet Union in 1941, Hitler might have secured peace with Stalin, keeping the Eastern Front quiet. And instead of declaring war on the United States after Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, Germany might have stayed out of American affairs, preventing the full force of the US military from joining the fight. Without these two major conflicts draining Germany's resources, Hitler could have focused entirely on dominating Europe. Britain, isolated and without American support, might have been forced into a peace agreement. France, already occupied, would remain under German rule. Spain and Portugal, though officially neutral, could have aligned with Germany for survival. Italy, under Mussolini, would continue as a loyal ally. With no major opposition, Hitler's Nazi empire would stretch from the Atlantic Ocean to the Ural Mountains. Cities across Europe would be renamed. German would become the official language in many places, and strict Nazi laws would be enforced. Resistance groups would still exist, but their chances of success would be slim. In this new world, daily life would be dictated by Nazi ideology. Schools would teach children about the superiority of the Aryan race. Books, music, and movies not aligned with Nazi beliefs would be banned. Technology and science would continue advancing, but only in ways that supported Hitler's vision. Innovation in fields like rocketry and medicine would have focused primarily on military applications and eugenics, with ethics completely disregarded. The darkest part of this alternate reality would be the fate of those deemed undesirable by the Nazis. The Holocaust, which claimed millions of lives, would have continued. Jewish communities, Romani people, political opponents, and others would be erased from society. Hitler's vision of a pure German empire would mean brutal oppression and genocide on an even larger scale. Concentration camps would expand, and human rights would be non-existent. A global Nazi empire would be built on fear, suppression, and violence. And what about the rest of the world? The United States, untouched by invasion, would remain a superpower. But with Germany controlling Europe, tensions between the two nations would be high. Japan, another major Axis power, would dominate the Pacific and parts of Asia. A Cold War-style standoff could have developed between the US and the Nazi regime, with both sides racing to develop nuclear weapons. The space race, as we know, it might never have happened, as Hitler's Germany would have prioritized weaponizing space over exploration. Latin America and Africa would also have been affected. Nazi Germany, with its hunger for resources, might have expanded into Africa, continuing colonial exploitation on a brutal scale. Latin America, caught between the United States and Nazi influence, could have become a battleground for ideological warfare, much like it was during the real-world Cold War, but with fascism replacing communism as the dominant opposing ideology. If Hitler had won, we might be living in a world where freedom of speech and democracy no longer exist, a world where history was rewritten to glorify the Nazi regime. There would be no international organizations like the United Nations promoting peace and cooperation. The idea of human rights might never have been recognized. Instead of a world striving for equality, we would have a world dominated by racial hierarchies and endless war. Cultural diversity and artistic expression would also have been greatly reduced. Many of the world's greatest artistic movements, films, and literary works would have never existed under Nazi rule. The strict censorship and state-controlled narratives would have suffocated creativity, making the world a bleak and monotonous place where only government-approved art and literature were allowed. The global economy would be vastly different. With Nazi Germany controlling most of Europe, economic policies would favor the ruling elite while subjugated nations would be turned into labor camps for the regime's benefit. The thriving industries of modern Europe might never have developed, and innovation would be stifled under an oppressive system focused only on war and domination. The medical labs of Nazi Germany were infamous for their horrific and unethical experiments, often driven by twisted ideologies rather than real science. If they had succeeded in their ambitions, their research might have led to attempts at creating so-called superhumans through genetic modification, eugenics, and extreme medical procedures. The Nazis were obsessed with racial purity and superiority. If they had advanced genetic engineering, they might have tried selectively breeding individuals for intelligence, strength, or endurance, experimenting with forced DNA alterations to enhance physical and mental capabilities, and creating a perfect Aryan through artificial genetic selection. Nazi doctors like Josef Mengele conducted cruel experiments on prisoners, often testing extreme endurance, hypothermia survival, and pain resistance. A dystopian future might have involved developing soldiers with extreme cold or heat resistance, suppressing pain receptors to make fighters immune to injury effects, and experimenting with drugs to enhance stamina, aggression, and alertness. If Nazi medical labs had access to advanced technology, they might have explored implanting mechanical parts like early cybernetics to create stronger soldiers, enhancing reflexes and speed with artificial stimulants or nervous system modifications, and augmenting brain functions through crude brain surgeries or chemical enhancements. The Nazis already conducted biological warfare research. But history took a different path. The sacrifices of millions ensured that Nazi Germany was defeated, and democracy, though imperfect, continued to shape our world. The defeat of Hitler was not just a military victory, but a victory for human values. It proved that unity, resistance, and moral courage can defeat tyranny. We will never truly know what might have been, but by remembering the past, we ensure that such darkness never returns. History is shaped by the choices we make, and we must always choose justice, equality, and freedom. Understanding the horrors of the past helps us build a better future, one where we learn from our mistakes and ensure that no ideology of hatred and destruction ever gains power again.